our minimal environmental criteria. But what did this produce? It produced, first of all, the legal obligation to do so. So it means that if a company sees a tender that has not integrated these criteria, they can take the tender, they can ask the tender to be invalidated and redone. And it's a push for every type of organization to reach at least a minimum level of environmental safeguard. We call them environmental minimum criteria, but progressively they've started including also health concerns and social concerns. So what happens is, just to make it brief, the Minister of the Environment selects sectors that have a high environmental and social impact, and they call a large working table with hundreds of organizations. We have like representatives of regions, cities, public bodies, but also companies and so on. And they open this table, which is like a long negotiation process, as you can imagine. And the result of this long negotiation process is what is considered to be an acceptable level of environmental and social protection, and acceptable both from the environmental and social perspective, but also from the economic perspective. And this sets the bare minimum. But on top of this, of course, these ministerial decrees, they provide also guidance on possible improvements, awarding criteria that often contain also social indications. You see there are two columns in the middle with all the product categories that are concerned by, they have their own specific environmental minimum criteria at the moment, and also new ones are in the production. Of course, the environmental criteria consider the whole process stages, the whole tendering process. So from the definition of the subject of the contract, technical specification, contractual clauses, and also our criteria and method of selecting manufacturers. The impacts that these criteria look at are the same impacts that the European environmental taxonomy looks at. So there is climate mitigation, climate adaptation, water resources, pollution, circular economy, and biodiversity. And also, for the social part, it includes equal opportunities, decent and inclusive work, and human rights across the whole life cycle and across the whole value chain. We can go on, but these are the wrong slides. This is terrible. This is probably the most important event for me to present all this work on public procurement. But no, this is, go ahead. So we go to the next one, yeah. What I wanted, instead of the two wrong slides that I just showed, I wanted to show you a couple of slides on the work that we do in Italy with the Green Environmental Observatory. The Observatory on Green Procurement, which is a volunteer work that we do together with another NGO that is called Legambiente. Every year we carry out a survey. We send out a questionnaire to all municipalities, regions, hospitals and health agencies, parks and so on, and ask them what is the state of implementation of public procurement. And what we have been doing this since 2019, and we can say that up to 2023, there has been a steady growth in the implementation, which is always in every case, even in the weakest one above 50%. But the growth stopped. So we are in a stable situation. We have been in a stable situation for almost 2 years now. And this is probably due to the fact that, of course, environmental criteria alone are not enough to produce the market that can offer products and services, but also they're not enough to allow public administration to be efficient in implementing sustainable public procurement. So more action needs to be done. This is to say that even in the countries that have adopted a mandatory approach, maybe France will be doing better than us, that's possible, but even countries that have adopted a mandatory approach need a stronger enforcement and support, not enforcement and not just in terms of controlling, but in terms of actual support in implementing sustainable public procurement. The impacts that we could achieve with the introduction of a few clear environmental and social criteria per different sectors is huge. In 2022, 2023, I can remember, Carbon 4, which is a French think tank, carried out a study that provided a simulation on what would have happened in the European economy if from 2019 and 2021, all public procurement in Europe had been carried out implementing two simple criteria. The first one is the origin, the European origin, selecting producers with that and manufacturers that produce in Europe, and a cap on emissions, on CO2 emissions that has been calibrated on the best European industrial performances for key sectors for the ecological transition. So the main sectors they looked at were construction materials, transports, food, and also they looked at the incentives for energy and mobility. And the results were quite interesting. Of course, if the Buy European and Sustainable Act, as it had been named, had been implemented in 2019, there would have been a 9% reduction in the global carbon footprint of public procurement in the European Union. And also it would have been possible, and this is even more interesting, to relocate 86 billion of euros from public procurement to support virtuous industries. So, of course, that would have been would have produced a very positive impact. And also there would have been creation of more green jobs above nearly 400,000. Next. From that study, I had prepared such nice slides, I'm so sorry. From that study, we moved on and we started trying to collect more data on the actual impact of sustainable public procurement. So here I'm reporting an example of a study we carried out within a European project called School Food for Change, which is a project to introduce the transformation of food systems in a positive and sustainable way through school food. We developed a calculator that allows to put in all the quantities for different types of food that schools are procuring. And it gives back some information, some environmental indicators. One of them, of course, is the CO2 reduction. Then we took some of the cities in the project and we made them do this calculation. And we compared the CO2 reduction that they achieved by introducing some environmental and social criteria into their procurement. And these badly represented are the results. So we range from Nuoro, which is a small city in Italy that achieved 57% reduction of CO2 just by introducing some additional environmental criteria in comparison to the average European meal, school meal for the same age group. And then we have like Bratislava, minus 63%, Lyon, minus 72%, Copenhagen, minus 78%, and finally the best-in-class Dordogne in France that is actually performing a minus 85% of CO2 emissions per meal in comparison with the average European meal. All these public administrations that you see here, different in size, in provenance, and also in financial capacity. But it was all possible just by having some dialogue with the market and introducing criteria that are actually achievable and profitable for both the public interest and also the companies. Next. So here we come to some final recommendations that we would like to share with you and that we consider very relevant in the light of all these considerations for the upcoming. The first one, of course, as you might have understood by now, in our view, is the introduction of minimum environmental and social criteria that are mandatory, is a key element for making procurement a real leverage for growth, competitiveness, and well-being of citizens. Because also it will allow every type of organizations increase their ability to meet higher standards. Then we strongly recommend that these criteria are coherent and consistent with the European taxonomy and all the other sector-specific acts. We also strongly recommend to evaluate the possibility for public authorities to share information on due diligence and suppliers for what concerns social issues and human rights on the basically based on the Scandinavian model. We think that especially for the sectors that are strategic for the ecological transition, it should be given preference to the local European content. This is because one of the main reasons against sustainable procurement and ecological transition is linked to the fact that the costs of transition are all on workers' backs. We think that protecting European workers and European industries while enhancing environmental standards should be a priority, especially in those strategic sectors. And finally, financial support is necessary to allow especially SMEs to adequate and to get ready to improve their offer to fulfill this new demand. This is all on my side. I don't know how you managed to navigate through this terrible presentation, but finally, we can move on to the most interesting part, which are the two subsequent parts that we will have. We will have one section on some experiences from the field. So we will have a comment from 2 regions in Italy and also from private actors that will provide us some feedback on how it has been working for them in these past 10 years, and also what impacts they have achieved. And then we will ask in the second part, we will ask for a comment from our honorable hosts. Unfortunately, most of the, all the experiences will be connected from remote for various reasons. They couldn't meet us in here today. But without further delay, I will pass the word to Giulia Tambato, which is the Senior Officer for Green Public Procurement of Veneto region, which is one of the regions at the forefront on sustainable public procurement in Italy. You can speak.
I can speak. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Giulia Tambato. I'm a lawyer, and I've been working like a buyer manager from 26, about 20 years now. In Italy, like Mrs. Nicolella said, the public administration have been obliged to buy sustainable goods and services from 2016. We can go to the slide 5, please. Okay, previous. The previous one, okay. This is the sector where minimum environmental criteria enforced in Italy is about a lot of categories: services, building, textile, food, and we can choose every kind of minimum environmental criteria for every public procurement that we had to do. The second, the following slide, please. Okay. This Italian approach has demonstrated in these 10 years that a significant result over 10 years of implementation and learning. First, we have noticed that companies operating within territory have become more prepared to provide sustainable services and supply. And second, there has been a substantial increase in sustainable production and innovation. For example, some companies have shifted their energy supply to more efficient and renewable systems, while others have begun to introduce a recycling process in the management of their waste. Please come on with the slide. What has Veneto region been doing to raise this awareness in the territory? The more important action we do is this. First, we organize an annual forum and an award since 2017, not only 2018. And in this occasion, is an event particularly dedicated to the public administration, a smaller public administration. And this occasion, we explain 2 or 3 minimum environmental criteria, and we analyze them. This annual event is particularly appreciated from the public administration, but even by the technical professionals like architects, engineers, and even some companies, because it's an occasion to discover and to while learning this role. In this occasion, there is even an award ceremony that is where participated a lot of companies. This event, this annual forum, we organize this in Venice. Instead, we began to promotion green public procurement into the territory with some meetings. In 2024, we organized this in Venetian villas. In 2025, we organized this in the other territory of the Veneto region. We organized this in Verona, at the northwest of the territory, in Belluno, the northeast, and in Vicenza, in the middle of the region, because we want to share the knowledge of minimum environmental criteria in the wider territory. But in 2025, we organize even some courses, or especially particularly dedicated to the Veneto region associated companies. And these courses are directed to the most important categories of interest, like interior furnishing, cleaning, sanitization, and greenery and management. And this was very useful for them because they didn't know very well introduce the minimum environmental criteria in their policy. Then in the 2025, we organized even a laboratory on innovative procurement. And this is was implemented using World Café method that has generated pre-conversation to choose the best subject that in the following meetings has been analyzed. At the end of this laboratory, it has simulated a particular legal act to kick off an innovative procurement. Another outcome is a deliberation, a formal act by our administration support the approval of the BESA directive. We can go on with the slide. In my opinion, it's more important to explain you that minimum environmental criteria oblige the public administration to use the methodology of most economical advantage offer instead of the minimum price. In which way public administration introduce this is in two ways. First, in service contract, by inserting technical specification, contract clauses, and these elements are mandatory to every companies. But it's very important the second way. In the procurement procedure, we, public administration, inserting rewarding criteria that value the life cycle of the product or service. The company who provides will receive additional points if they answer to this criteria. For example, if the economic operator choose to provide sources from renewable sources, it could be more additional point. Even if the economy operator introduce a virtuous waste management process or renewable production, it could be an additional point. We can go on. We test this methodology in the following product categories: cleaning, furnishing, vending machine, textile, maintenance and public green areas, and catering. And in the following slide, I choose some virtuous companies in Veneto that demonstrated that in the textile sector, in the food sector, and other sector, there are a lot of companies ready to offer some goods and services more sustainable. We can jump to the last slide, please. Okay, to sum up. Yes, in these 10 years of regulation requiring public administration to adopt the minimum environmental criteria demonstrate that companies are ready and have shifted their production towards more sustainable practices. Second, it's very important that the most economically advantageous offer instead of the minimum price is the best way to choose the companies more virtuous and sustainable. And it works, because during this 10 years, we have tested about 6,000 companies that have respected Italian standard and improved goods and services in a sustainable way. And so this kind of rules in Italy works very well. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. Because we are running very late, I will pass on the words directly to the next experience, which is from Intercenter, which is the main, the centralized procurement station from Emilia-Romagna, another region in Italy. And I ask Vincenza Poliandri if she can be so kind to squeeze her intervention in 4 or 5 minutes. I'm really sorry about the delay, because some of the MEPs will have to leave afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. We cannot see you. Yes, we can now. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vincenza Poliandri, and I am the head of Sustainable Innovation of Intercenter, the Agency for the Development of Climatic Markets in the Emilia-Romagna regions. I would like to thank the Ecosistemi Foundation for the invitation to participate in BESA and Dr. Zingaretti for this meeting. I will now provide a brief introduce Intercenter, the central purchasing body of the Emilia-Romagna. The agency's mission is to rationalize and simplify spending on goods and services by regional public administration, with a particular focus on supplies for healthcare companies. The agency's strategic priority regarding sustainability is further demonstrated by the creation of new management area entirely dedicated to sustainable innovation. Every two years, the agency produces a report to account for the public value created within the territory in relation to sustainable development goals. You should have a paper copy of this report. The 2025 reports covering the 2023 and 2024 biennium highlight 111 tenders launched, 568 million euros saved for public administration, 33 framework agreements with green criteria and 25 with social requirements. Over 24,000 computerized tenders conducted on the online platform. 41,000 economic operators registered on e-procurement platform of Intercenter, and nearly 9,000 participants in training events. Orders worth 1.1 billion euros were issued through framework agreement featuring green criteria. The number of companies holding environmental certification or other green requirements has now exceeds 1,500, representing a 60.4% increase compared to the previous 2-year periods. Intercenter conducts an annual analysis of carbon dioxide emission reduction to estimate the environmental impact of its procurement. This analysis takes into account the participation of regional public administration in the agency's green tenders. In 2024, there was a significant reduction of over 294,000 tons of CO2 emission released into the environment, thanks to the purchase of recycled paper, the manufactured toner cartridge, Energy Star certified PC, and the collection of medical waste using recycled containers by regional administration. The most significant environmental benefit is achieved through the supply of green electricity, wind, solar thermal, solar photovoltaic, hydroelectric, geothermal, and biomass, which alone result in an annual saving of 283,000 tons of CO2, compared to an equivalent purchase of energy produced from fossil fuels. However, it is necessary to establish a unified method for measuring the impact of green public procurement. Currently, several methods exist, such as carbon footprint, CO2 matrix, and so on. While we use CO2, we must provide the public administration with the uniform guideline on how to measure the impact of environment policies. Scusa, brevissima. Thanks you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. We have a small change in the program because MEP Cavedagna, which is a member of the European Conservatives and Reformist Group, has to leave early as a plane and very kindly made some space for us. So before moving ahead with the other experiences, I would like to ask a comment from him on this initiative and also on how he sees the future of sustainable procurement in Europe and what it will look like.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, thank you to the S&D group. Thank you to the chair Zingaretti of the Italian delegation for this invitation. And thank you to all the members here, all the colleagues, all the enterprises and so on. But sorry, but I have to leave for exposition tomorrow, and I have to take a plane in 1 hour from now. So I will be very brief and hoping there will be no traffic on my way. And so thank you and sorry, but we are here to reflect on the public procurement, also on the sustainability issues, and we have to face all the new directives and also regulation in the next few months and the next few years. And of course, I think that all the Italian MEPs can also face this new regulation, in particular taking notes from our kind of action. I mean, in our internal law. First of all, we have to reaffirm, I think that everybody before me decided to pronounce these words, but I have to reaffirm this. Almost, more or less, the 14% of the GDP, the European GDP, is made of public procurement. And at the same time, we have, for example, a lot of call for tenders that, for example, has just one participant. So this is not competitiveness. And I would like to reaffirm some 3-4 bullet points before leave, because as you know, I would like to give the floor and leave the floor to our participant. But for example, the core problem in European public procurement today is not a lack of policy objectives, but excessive procedural detail and bureaucracy, as somebody mentioned before me. The most pressing issues are, first, the high cost, too few bidders participating in tenders, as just remarked, and consequently the declining competition, because we have a lack also of competitiveness in our public procurement system. And then so we are facing also a limited participation of SMEs in particular. I mean, Italy, and not only Italy, is composed, the backbone of our economy is mostly composed by SMEs. Most of them cannot participate to a lot of calls for tenders. So this is a matter, this is a question that we have to reply. My question is how the introduction of mandatory sustainability criteria would resolve any of this kind of problem. Or maybe, as we as conservative reaffirm, it would instead deepen this problem. So we have to follow what the President Mario Draghi said, follow the competitiveness. We have to solve all this problem, but face the lack of competitiveness for our enterprises. I think, for example, that public procurement reform must focus on a limited set of essential objectives. In my view, this should include deregulating our directives, our regulation, digitalizing, as we are doing in particular with the investment on AI. I mean, Europe is investing a lot on AI factories. I mean, one of them will be in Italy, the second one will be in Sweden, if I remember. But we have to digitalize more what we are doing until now. And then changing in some procedures to ensure full transparency for the companies and also for the public aspect of the public procurement. We will inevitably need to take a political decision on how to prioritize goals, but the recent years clearly show that Europe has slowed down compared to the rest of the world. I mean, in particular, the America, United States, China, and so on. Just to skip to the conclusion, I would like to reaffirm that we must recognize that Europe is highly diverse. I mean, not only between member states, but also between all the regions of all the member states. I mean, Italy, for example, under this perspective, is a good example of this diversity. There simply cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution or rule, but we have to, for example, leave the single authority, because decisions should be taken as close as possible to the procuring authorities. I mean, it's really hard for a company from Poland, for example, to participate to a public procurement call, for example, that is really close to a territory or a specific requirement. So it's not too easy now for all the companies. So the answer cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution, but something particular that is respectful, for example, for the capabilities of a territory or what the citizen needs, for example. So concluding, for the Buy European idea, that I think it's a good suggestion on one hand, but however, we must remember that the economies of many member states are heavily reliant on exports. So, for example, to report on public procurement adopted by the IMCO committee on the Parliament provides a sensible approach. Focus on what is truly strategic and support it accordingly. I mean, we are talking a lot about some strategic sectors. I mean, heavy industry, public utilities, critical infrastructures, and also the defense capabilities. With the colleague Maran, we discussed a lot about this in the IMCO committee. So, just to conclude, we have to, on one hand, follow the competitiveness, on the other hand, to defend our capabilities and producing capabilities, and of course, try to defend the idea to buy European, but for some countries, for example, buy European means buy from my country. So we have to, on one hand, respect the sustainability, but on the other hand, sustain the competitiveness. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this different perspective, but really useful to our common reasoning. And I really hope you don't miss your flight if you have to run.
Thank you.
So I will pass the word now to the two experiences from two enterprises. The first one is Assosistema with its president, Matteo Nevi. Assosistema is within the Confindustria, the Association of Enterprises, and it represents the sector of textiles that provides services to also to hospitals and the healthcare. Assosistema has realized a very interesting project on circular economy triggered by the regional policies on sustainable public procurement. And I will ask you, please, if you can really to stick to the core of the project and just let us know what effect the public demand has produced on your services.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to take part in this important discussion. Okay, do you hear me?
Okay.
Yes,
yes, we lost connection. Prego.
Okay, my name is Matteo Nevi. I'm General Director to Assosistema Confindustria that represented the industrial laundry, sterilization center and manufacturing and the distributor of personal protective equipment in Italy. In particular, our member companies manage rental, washing and reconditional service for textile and surgical instruments used in both public and the private health care system. I have prepared 3 slides to support and resume my speech. The material underground analysis have been circulated. An English version of the material will be available shortly. Where should we start? I will start with a simple but important fact. Today, Italy is the first country in Europe and very likely worldwide to have introduced through legislation and minimal environmental criteria a clear principle for public procurement. This principle requires public administration to reduce waste through their purchasing choice by preferring service based on reusable production and a gradual moving away from the single-use solution and the supporting textile recovery project. In healthcare, this principle leads to very practical decisions. For example, choosing reusable surgical gown and drops in operation theater whenever possible, instead of single-use items, while maintaining the same standard of hygiene and safety for patient and healthcare worker. This is particularly important if we consider the operating theater generate about 30% of hospital total waste. When sustainable alternative exist and guarantee the same level of safety, they should be adopted. To support this approach with data, Assosistema Confindustria carry out a comparative study of reusable and single-use gown and drops. The study was based on international recognized methods, including life cycle assessment and life cycle cost, and considered reusable gown over 16 washing cycles. The results are very clear, and they are shown in the slide. Reusable gown produce 34% less CO2 emission than single-use gown. Applied to large hospital volume, this leads to a significant environmental benefit. The same applies to operating theater drops with a 32% reduction in CO2 emission. There is no final point to dissertation. Hide cost. Is possible the last slide to scroll? And these costs do not appear directly in hospital budget, but they affect society and the whole and can be described in environmental depth. According to other analyses, single-use products generate environmental externality of around 78 euro per gown, compared to reusable alternative. This makes reusable solutions not only environmentally responsible, but also economic sound. In conclusion, the message is very clear. Environmental sustainability, healthcare safety, and economic efficiency are not opposing goals. In healthcare, they can and must move forward together, starting from more informed and data-driven public procurement choice. Thank you for attention, and we hope to have opportunity to work together on these matters. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So I will pass on to the last of the experiences from the field, and I will ask Lorenzo Orsenigo, President of the Association for Sustainable Infrastructures, to give us again a very concise presentation on the relation between sustainable infrastructure and finance, and on the relation with public procurement.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you to Nicola Zingaretti for hosting this interesting event. We in our association, we are developing a new model for sustainable infrastructure and finance. Why and what is the matter? Now you know that in this year, 2026, we'll finish the Next Generation EU program. And in Italy, we need infrastructure, and we have a very, and the institutional funds and private funds globally working, they are very interested in investing in Italian infrastructure. So we have an important data from an Ernst Young investigation that 87% of the funds, economical funds, they think that sustainability is the key factor for their investors. For a lot of reasons, I don't want to go deeply now, but this is the importance. 87% they looks for sustainable aspects. But there is a problem that now we have the engineering that it's focused on the work, on the construction, on the project and the construction of the work, and this address the risks related to the sustainability of the works. And on the other hand, we have the finance that looks only to the operator, mainly to his guarantees, ethics, references, and so they address the risk related to the operator sustainability. So it's necessary now to let these two subjects to talk together and to find something that they can share. And we have some experience in our legislation with the environmental minimum criteria. The relators before me have spoken about that, and also about the public contract code. I want to underline that from 2023 in Italy, we have in the public contract code the paragraph for the report for sustainability of the work. So in this framework, there are two tools, two rating systems that are cheated in these laws, and one is a protocol for measuring the sustainability of the work. It means, in our case, the infrastructure. And what I want to underline is that with this rating system, we can measure with the points, with the rate, how the work is sustainable. you can see there are a percentage, but the percentage is in a set of different points. The next, please. The next slide, please. Okay, and how it works, there are 5 areas: the quality of life, the leadership, resource allocation, natural world, climate and resilience, and there are 64 credits, and you answering to these credits, you can demonstrate how your infrastructure is compatible with infrastructure requirements. Next, please. On the other hand, we have cheated in our environmental minimum criteria for infrastructure another rating system. Its name is Get It Fair, but it's not important what is the rating system. I want to suggest to concentrate on the concept that can measure the rating, the potential risk of an organization for the ESG aspects. So there are social, health and safety, environmental, business ethics, and so on. So please, the next one. Next one again. Thank you. And then with the same method as we have seen before, and with these 72 criteria, you can have a range with points, with rate, that can measure your potential risks on ESG. So you have on one side the measuring of the risk of the equity, as they call it in finance. It means the organization. And on the other side, you have a mean for measuring the risk of the debt, the work. Next one, please. So with these two means, with these two rating system, you can have in a Cartesian graph, you can have a green area where the risks are lower, both for the equity, for the operator, and for the work, for the infrastructure. But in this area, it's important to define what are the main criteria for different operators. I mean, for example, if I am a fund, for example, for me, could be more interesting the criteria for the quality of life of the citizen, because if I have no protest, I can have sure chrono programs, sure cost, and so on. And instead, if I am an insurance company, probably I am most interested in criteria like resilience or hydrological analysis, because in that case I reduce the risk to pay for some strange event. So in this area, green area, we can define what are the main criteria, making a cherry picking depending of the single operator. And it's not so easy to understand, but I can confirm that if you use the rating system for the work, you satisfy also the taxonomy, the aspects of the regulation 852 of 2020, and especially the not significant harm criteria. And on the other side, on the operator, if you satisfy the ESG potential risk, you can have the declaration of conformity for sustainability reporting. So with this model, you can satisfy the actual regulation in Europe, and on the same time, you can attract finance because you are a subject and work with minor risks. And this is I think a new challenge for the next years in Italy, and I suppose also in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really sorry for the compressed timing because all these topics and experiences are very interesting. We will move on to the final session. I will ask our policy panelists a single question, and then I will pass on the words. So I'll just introduce all of them in one round, and then I'll pass on the word. So we have Henning Heinstein, Head of Unit of the European Commission from the DG Internal Market, Industry and SMEs, from the Unit D2 on Public Procurement. Then I will pass the word are you in, sorry, this is not ritual, but are you in a hurry or can I? No, it's okay. So I will pass the word to MEP Francesco Maran from the Committee of Internal Market and Consumer Protection, member of the group S&D. Then I'll pass on the word to MEP Gabriel Bischoff, Vice President of the S&D Group. And finally, I will ask also comment from Chiara Di Mambro, which is the Director of Strategy, Italy and Europe of ECHO, the Italian climate change think tank. So the general question I ask each one of you is if you can provide us a comment on a reaction on all the experiences and reasoning that we heard from so far, and which approach to green public procurement should we adopt in the future and within the next, the upcoming reform of public procurement. And I also give you some buzzwords that arose from the previous discussions, which are clean industries, the involvement of SMEs, competitiveness, and also innovation. Mr. Bernstein, please.
Thank you very much. I'm breaking all protocol by addressing you before the present honorable members of the parliament do so, but since you insist. So indeed, this is a very, and thank you very much for hosting us here, interesting event, because we hear from the ground of experiences of the practical situations, how they work, what they have learned. It's that kind of experiences and knowledge that we're looking for at this stage when we are consulting very widely across Europe on what stakeholders believe should be the design of the announced revision of the public procurement directives, the revision announced for the second quarter this year, probably more towards the summer. So we are running extensive stakeholder consultations until the end of January. So this is not at all the moment for us to say what we are going to do, because first of all, we don't know. And secondly, it would not be very serious if we were asking you what you think we should be doing and already knowing what we're going to do. And we don't. That said, we have set out in the way that we are consulting and that we are asking stakeholders for their views, a little bit the direction of travel as we see it, not excluding other directions of travel. But on the issue of green public procurement, which is the main focus here today, first, because EVP Séjourné has set out in the parliament the three priority areas for the reform, which is on the one hand, and we heard about this here today as well, the simplification, flexibility of the existing procedural rules, which go hand in hand with improved transparency as a means to fight irregular practices and corruption in the system, which was the original rationale for all the procedural rules that we have. So if we want to simplify the procedural rules, we need to find other ways to ensure safeguarding against irregular practices. And we heard about transparency, we heard about digitization and the opportunities that exist in this regard. Second pillar, by European, also outlined in this very house by President Ursula von der Leyen in the State of the Union speech, and subject to many political debates right now, which is very understandable. And the third pillar, what we're focusing on here today. Strategic procurement, as we call it, means sustainable procurement, sustainable in environmental and in social terms, is the third priority. On that, you know that the 2014 directives already allow for social environmental procurement. We heard about the uneven implementation across member states, which is certainly our assessment as well. We heard that some member states have mandatory provisions, others voluntary, and some do not. So indeed, while I appreciate what has also been said earlier to leave a lot of ownership on the ground to contracting authorities, we have done very well, but we can probably do better. So orientations we give in the public consultations, issues that we look at, were partly raised here today as well. Best price quality ratio instead of price only is a subject where the question is how to design this best, also in a way that does not contradict the simplification objective of the reform. Secondly, legal definitions. We heard about this here today as well. The link to taxonomy was mentioned by several speakers and is indeed important. What we have not heard much about today so far is the role that labels can play, that standards can play as a way to facilitate on the ground in practice the uptake of green procurement. That is certainly something we're looking at as well. We have heard a little bit here, a lot more earlier today in the former social partner hearing on link to the subject matter. And whether the existing balance that you can find in the directives is appropriate or not. There's very different views among stakeholders on that, but it is an important issue. And so is consistency, coherence with sectoral acts. We heard a bit about this here today as well. So I and we in the Commission do not believe at all that there is, as sometimes put in the political debate, contradiction between focus on competitiveness and at the same time sustainability. These things go together. This is part of the European values and what makes a social market economy in Europe perhaps different to other parts of the world. SME participation was briefly highlighted, is very important. Our assessments, however, show that actually SME participation in public procurement is pretty high and in line with, if not above, the general participation of SMEs in the economy. Again, does not mean we cannot do more, but is probably already done quite successful as a result of the introduction of lotting, which some of you referred to in the 2014 reform. That was a lot. I tried to be brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very clear. Thank you very much. I pass the word to MEP Francesco Maran.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are talking about something that represents 14% of EU GDP, as we know. Public procurement, more or less, is that. So we have to use it to obtain some results. It's not indifferent. If we want to have much competitiveness on one side, if we want to obtain results on our green policies, we have to use better public procurement. Somebody say it should be easier. True. Of course, we agree. The easier thing, as we know, and as we had to fight when we had the INI report here in the Parliament, is to have the lowest price approach. It is easier. If we want something easier, nothing is easier than the lowest price. I've been in charge of public procurement for many years in my previous experience in the city of Milan, but it doesn't help you to obtain any result at any quality. So we have to know that public procurement should be easier, okay, but it's a complicated matter, and we have to defend some criteria. And green criteria helps European companies because they had many efforts year after year in the last decades to obtain results. And when we say, let's go green, they are better than non-EU companies. So that defending green criteria on public procurement is also to create a condition where European companies are more possibilities instead of non-EU company. This is, for me, an important point. Of course, it should be simpler. We have an experience in Italy about green public procurement. Of course, we still have many problems about public procurement, but I wouldn't say that our problems are connected on green procurement criteria. They work quite well. They help companies. We didn't have a significant protest, and it's interesting the fact that they are being defended by government from different political approach. So it was not a matter of left and right. It's a matter of when you have those criteria, you see they work, and it's better to have it instead of what it was before. This part could be also helpful for EU regulation on my point of view. Second point, I just mentioned it because Gabi Biscios will speak after me, but we want a green procurement on one side, but we want also to defend workers. So another important criteria is social. And when we talked in the past about ESG, we mentioned a lot the E and the environment point, that is a pillar, but the social is a pillar too. And we have also to have competition and procurement that defends the right and the salary of workers. That is as important as the green part. Those challenges are connected because as we saw in the INI report, the main approach is we go to the lowest price or we have criteria. Our position is we need the criteria, green and social, to defend all the aspect of the complexity of our society at the moment. Two other points. How we can buy European? First, if we go green, European are stronger. That is important. Second, there are also some approaches that are connected to the theme of a procurement. For example, I'm in charge of some files about defense, and in defense procurement, we are talking a lot about European production, how much of European products in everything you have to buy. Probably you need some principle, but you also have to know every single asset to see how much you can push and how much you can't. I would also mention the fact that we should also, we never talked about it, but also have a buy local approach on some aspect. When we added the question of food for young kids, for example, I was in the city of Milan, we are used to buy food from the local markets around, and it's a part of the approach to keep a community together. And public procurement should also defend a community. The last point I would mention that, of course, everybody want to defend SMEs. And we try to make rules to oblige to have small procurement in order to make them participate. When I was in the other side from the city level, the approach of the people that work with us was, this is our administrative enemy. I mean, we have to know that everybody should make some tender, would prefer to have one big tender instead of 10 small ones, because of many problems that honestly we can't solve from here. That is why we think that probably it's not perfect, our approach to say two levels of companies in a tender, but no more, because you weaken their participation of a procurement. But we should, in my point of view, defend the rule of SMEs inside big dimension procurement, that it will be the favorite approach of every, and that is much important than saying that theoretically there will be thousands of competition and tenders that will probably not take place. I don't know if it is perfect, probably not, but it's more probable we can defend in that way instead of saying something that it will not happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I pass now the microphone.
I was so happy to be the third speaker because I thought now I get a glimpse of what the Commission is going to do and I can take up in my intervention. But unfortunately, I didn't. But I will highlight again the position of the S&D group. And as you said, I'm the vice president that is responsible for 3 committees, or 4, but 3 that play an important part in public procurement. It's the IMCO committee, it's the Econ committee, and it's the employment committee. And this is why I think it's very good to have this exchange today, because I think to look in the member states where certain aspects work well helps us a lot and will help also the Commission a lot in drafting their proposals. So to have good examples, for example, good examples from Italy on green procurement and how it works in practice is good. We also had a lot and looked at good examples for social procurement. For example, the city of Copenhagen in Denmark is really good at that. And I would propose to not talk about green or social, but sustainable procurement. And I think you cannot do one with the other. If you want to have sustainable procurement, you have to look, and it was said here, we are talking about a lot of money. And it's not just money, it's the money of the citizens. And this is why also we have to deal with it responsible, and we have to think it together, meaning to achieve the climate goals we have and to invest this money sustainable and at the same time also socially responsible. And this is why for us this question of really having public money that is invested on one hand and that we developed in the employment committee with the broad support of the political groups to say we have sort of a bonus system that on top of the different criteria, the Commission talked about best price quality. What is quality without also quality of work? A bonus system rewarding these companies on top, really respecting collective bargaining and quality jobs. We will also have a strategy on quality jobs soon of the Commission. We already have legislation that aims to improve the rate of collective bargaining in Europe. So to think this together, sustainable procurement for us is and can help, especially in this process of transitions that we are in, help European companies, SMEs, social economy really to invest here in a sustainable way. This is why it is also important to see that it's not a question, and unfortunately in the IMCO committee there was not enough support for it, because I think important thing will be legal clarity. We have these options already. We see how different it is taken up in member states, because for example, I come from a country where people don't like to take risks and be, especially when you have public tenders, on the safe side, because otherwise it costs a lot of time and a lot of money for projects. So this question of legal clarity in terms of sustainable procurement is very, very important. And what we see, and I think what also the assessment of the Commission showed, that we need here more legal clarity. And here also more room for maneuver, and we have to find a good way how to do it. I think also in these times, and 2026 already started quite challenging, I would say, if you look at the global scene, to have this question on one hand on autonomy and sovereignty of Europe is very important, but also to develop really also a concept on Buy European, which is easy to support when you just have this framing, but to do it in detail, I would be interested to hear a bit how the Commission intends to do it. But I think it's the right time to develop such a concept, and really to make sure that we don't get again stuck in thinking it is too complex and therefore we don't have the courage to really create legal clarity and to make it easier, simpler, for sustainable procurement. And I think also legal clarity is simplification. And here I think it's very timely to achieve this, and also because if you look, it was said we are talking about 2.6 trillion euros. It's a lot of money that you can invest sustainable, or you can invest it and don't care about anything. And I think at the same time, it is also a lot of money to make sure that it serves the European citizens that in the end are the ones with their taxes that provide this money. And it could be a positive project to communicate to citizens and to companies at the same time in Europe. Thank you very much.
And now, last but really not least, Chiara Di Mambro.
Thanks a lot, Sabina, and thanks everybody. Well, I have the opportunity to speak as the last one, and it's been a very fruitful and rich discussion today here, and it's been very interesting to have the opportunity to bring our perspective. So thanks a lot to Fondazione Ecosistemi and to Mr. Nicola Zingaretti for organizing this very interesting and timely event. On the timeliness, we're going to see at the end of this month the publication of the Industrial Accelerator Act, and all the discussion around lit markets will be at the core of this new mandate. As it's been said several times, we need to reconcile in an effective way competitiveness with sustainability and climate policies, make the advantage of the European policies in terms of a better quality production and more innovation to be a distinctive factor of the EU made production products. So there's not a lack of innovation within EU, we would think, but there is a lack of stable demand. So when we think about industrial transformation, looking at it from a climate perspective, as what we do at ECO, we focus on the climate perspective. We need to combine supply and demand side policies. As the size of our market, as it's been underlined several times, allows first for our companies to take advantage. It's one of the main elements of, exchange with foreign partners. So why not for European companies to scale up those productions within Europe? And when we talk about those kind of criteria, first, we need to think along the value chains. So for the I mean, costs and emissions, industrial emissions, as well as innovation are not distributed evenly. There are several bottlenecks. So we need to look at the relevance of the criteria we establish in terms of the effect we get in the end. And that is very much linked to the second criteria we should look at when developing common criteria for best price quality around Europe. Simplification has been mentioned several times. Those criteria should be incremental and proportionate. The taxonomy and the experience with the DNSH principle, the way it was implemented with the recovery facility has been mentioned several times. And there is a lot of experience when it comes to the voluntary SME schemes and all the schemes that are being developed now by EFRAG for standards, for sustainability standards that have to be reported by enterprises. We should really build on what we have in an incremental way, looking at scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, for example, building upon the schemes that we have. There's a lot to build on. I mean, there are discussions also in the ESPR fora all about CO2 standards and better ways to define what green products really are. So why to build upon what we have? Because enterprises and public authorities are familiar with those kind of criteria. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's try to stick to what we have and make it incremental and proportionate again, which means related to the relevance of what we are doing. So let's think of the value we are creating around the criteria we're setting for industry. And to do that and to allow industries to scale with its production, those systems need to be, digital. And again, the experience on taxonomy is relevant and interoperable. When we talk about standards and voluntary schemes, those are relevant in the sense that they are able to spread new systems and I mean all of the experiences we've been seeing, those are peaks and excellence. But we have to build a minimum common denominator that works for the whole of Europe. So credibility to us is the main characteristics that this whole package will need to have and needs to be able to talk with all the other instruments that are being developed within Europe to help the lead markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before saying goodbye to all of you, I really would like to thank all the speakers for the really, really interesting contribution that they provided to us today. And I hope we will have some takeaways from this discussion. I just would like to invite you all, if you have clearer ideas now, to take part in the consultation on the new directive. You can find all the instructions very easily lined out in the Commission website. And also as Fondazione Ecosistemi, we are still collecting evidence from the results that sustainable public procurement has actually produced in terms of environmental and social impacts. And we will present these further results in May in Rome in an event that is called Forum Compraverde by Green. So you're all invited to attend and to catch up with the second part of our work. Thank you very much.
Ja, sehr schön. Große Erwartung. Grazie mille, ci vediamo a Roma. Questa è la domanda difficile. Fatemi sapere se lo volete fare al Parlamento. Sai che è da verso una sede stupenda dentro Piazza Venezia, non quella là storica, nel palazzo.
Ma il motivo per cui non riusciamo a stare la data è perché stiamo aspettando una risposta da lui. Che si era offerta.
Quante persone?
diciamo, i numeri sono sempre variabili, abbiamo tante sezioni in parallelo di solito.
Allora fammi sapere, perché io non l'ho ancora vista, mi hanno detto che hanno aperto proprio dentro Palazzo Venezia una nuova sede.
Che ha più sale o una
Sì, sì.
sarebbe bellissimo.
You're welcome. See you.
Va
Quella,
bene.
quella del Parlamento europeo dall'altra parte, quella via 4 novembre.
Sì, anche lì abbiamo pensato potrebbe
Vabbè, fammi sapere te.
Grazie davvero.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
I will send you all the slides.
Yes, yes, even if they're Italian, it doesn't matter. I have.
Yeah, but
Italians.
yeah. But yeah, I know. In Brussels, you hear more Italian than any other language.
Yeah, that's the advantage with Italian. No? If it was a Latvian event, I would have said I need it in English.
Yeah. Yeah. So please take one of these. Actually,
I'll take it for my
That's
colleague.
Italian.
Yeah.
And yeah. I will send you the materials, and if you like, it would be wonderful. Event we are organizing in Rome. It's the major event
Yeah.
for sustainable public
It'd be
procurement.
difficult.
But even on
Online, perhaps.
fine,